Imagine the scene. It is the autumn of 1941. We are deep in the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front. It is the season of the Great Mud. The dirt roads have turned into rivers of glue. You see a column of German trucks, the famous Opel Blitzes. They are stuck. Their wheels are spinning helplessly, sinking deeper and deeper. The German soldiers are shouting, pushing, covered in a field. They are going nowhere. Then from behind, a strange-looking truck appears. It has Hungarian markings. It looks a bit smaller, maybe a bit weird with its spare wheels mounted high on the sides. The German drivers wave for it to stop, thinking, if we are stuck, you will definitely get stuck. But the Hungarian driver just smiles. He shifts gears and the truck just keeps going. It crawls right past the stuck Germans, floating over the mud that swallowed their vehicles. This machine is the Raba 38 and Botond. It was the backbone of the Royal Hungarian Army. It was the truck that impressed the Germans so much they often asked the Hungarians to pull them out of the mud. And this is the story of a small country building one of the best off-road vehicles of World War II. So, why did Hungary need this special truck? After World War I, Hungary was in a tough spot. They lost a lot of territory and resources. The roads in Eastern Europe back then weren't like the highways today. They were rough, full of holes, or just dirt trucks. Well, actually not much changed. By the late 1930s, the world was getting ready for a war again. The Hungarian army knew that they couldn't rely on horses forever. They needed to move soldiers and supplies fast. They needed a truck that could go anywhere up the mountains in the Carpathians and through the swamps of the east. They looked at foreign trucks, but none of them were quite right. They were either too expensive or just couldn't handle the bad terrain. So the Hungarian military leaders turned to a local factory in the city of Győr called Rába and said, build us something that won't get stuck. This is where our main character enters the story, Dezső Winkler. He was a brilliant engineer at the Raba factory. He didn't just want to copy a German or an American truck. He wanted to solve the specific problems of the landscape. So he looked at, then took the Raba AFi truck and used it as a base for his development. Then in 1938, he presented his masterpiece, the Botond. Let's look under the hood, or rather, let's look at the wheels, because that is where the magic happened. Most trucks back then were 4x2, or some of them were 4x4, or a simple 6-wheelers. The Botond was 6x4. It means it had 6 wheels and the back 4 were powered by the engine. But Winkler did something special. He gave each rear wheel its own independent suspensions. Think of it like legs. If one wheel hit a big rock, it would move up, but the other wheels stayed flat on the ground to keep pushing. It moved more like a caterpillar than a truck. While it was capable to carry 12 soldiers in the back or 1.5 tons of goods, also could tow 2 tons on paved roads and 1 ton off-road. But that's not all. The Botond had 2 very cool tricks that made it unique. The first, the rollers. If you look at the front bumper, you see 2 metal rollers. These weren't for decoration. If the truck drove nose first into a ditch, the bumper wouldn't smash into the dirt. The rollers would hit the ground and roll the nose of the truck up and out of the ditch. It's simple, but genius. Then the crutch wheels. Look at the spare wheels on the side. They weren't just stored there. They were mounted on spinning axles. If the truck drove over a sharp hill and the belly of the truck scraped the ground, these spare wheels would touch the earth and spin. They acted like an extra set of wheels to stop the truck from getting stuck on its belly. And then let's talk about the technical specs. It had a 4-cylinder petrol engine. It produced around 70 horsepower. I know that sounds weak today, but back then it was enough to get the job done, because the truck was built light. As this was a transport truck, it didn't have armor plating, as it wasn't meant to fight tanks. However, it often towed the 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft gun or carried heavy machine guns for protection. Another interesting bit was that every vehicle came with a factory-fitted winch, so it could free itself when it got stuck without any help. The Hungarian government was very happy with the vehicle and put in a large order. As none of the factories in Hungary could manage such an order alone, it was built by a group of 6 different factories working together. They built around 2,500 to 3,000 of them in total all the way until 1944. Then few was completed after the war and handed over to the newly formed Hungarian People's Army. There were 2 main versions of this truck. The Botond A was the original high quality version. Then came the Botond B in 1942. As the war got harder and materials ran out, they had to simplify the design. They used cheaper steel and made some changes to the engine, but it was still a tough beast. And these trucks went everywhere. They carried the Hungarian army into the Soviet Union. They were the lifeline for the soldiers. They carried food, ammo, and wounded men. The most tragic chapter for the Botond was the Don River disaster in 1943. The Hungarian Second Army was stationed at the Don River in freezing cold winter. When the Soviet attack broke the lines, it was chaos. In the retreat, the Botond showed its true worth. While many German engines froze and wouldn't start in the minus 30-degree cold, the Botonds often roared to life. Stories from survivors say that these trucks were built to carry 12 to 14 soldiers. They were often overloaded with 20 or 30 desperate soldiers hanging off the sides, fleeing through the snow. The Botond saved thousands of lives simply because it kept running when everything else failed. Sadly, many were abandoned, not because they broke down, but because they ran out of fuel. So what happened to the Botond? After World War II, Hungary fell under Soviet occupation. The country was in ruins. The Rába factory was bombed to the ground. Rába attempted to restart the Botond production using leftover parts, delivering a few units to the new Hungarian People's Army between 1946 and 1948. Even though the Botond was an amazing design, the new communist government decided to stop making it. Why? Politics. They wanted to standardize things with the Eastern Bloc. The new communist leadership faced a decision: revive the Botond or adopt the new platform. The Botond was complex, expensive to manufacture, and tainted by its association with the Horthy era. Instead, the government looked to Austria. The Steyr 380, a conventional 4x2 diesel truck, was being produced in the Soviet zone of Austria. In 1949, a license agreement was signed to produce the Steyr 380 in Hungary as the Chapel D350. The Chapel was a fine truck for paved road, but off-road, it couldn't tie the Botond's shoelace. The decision to kill the Botond was strategic. The priority was reconstructing the civilian economy, which needed thousands of simple delivery trucks, not specialized off-roaders. The dedicated military capability was sacrificed for industrial volume. The Raba Botond is a classic example of what could have been. It was a brilliant machine designed by a Hungarian genius, Dezső Winkler, who, by the way, survived the Holocaust to help rebuild the Hungarian industry after the war. Today, only one survived, and it is in a museum in Budapest. But in the history books of military transport, the Botond deserves a parking spot right next to the famous American Jeep. It was the little truck that could, and did,